It was one of those nights in McKinney, Texas, peaceful and quiet. Mark Farrell, up hours before the sun would rise that December morning in 2022, was in the kitchen making coffee, his wife Amy still asleep in bed. But the peace and quiet of that early morning hour was suddenly shattered as an awful sound made Mark's head turn.
It was a frightening sound. It sounded kind of primal. It sounded horrible. So I flip on the light and I could tell immediately it was Amy. And she was making this I can't even describe the sound, but it was a frightening sound. She clearly wasn't breathing.
Not knowing what was wrong, Mark dialed 911 and was told to immediately start CPR on his wife until paramedics arrived. Amy was rushed to the hospital. Tests were done, a lot of them, and the answer perhaps not expected but definitely frightening. Amy had a brain tumor right in the center of her brain.
It was terrifying. It was horrifying. We went to see the neurosurgeon, and initially the first fellow that we spoke to frightened us. This is what's going to happen. We're going to take this thing out. We're going to analyze exactly what it is. You're going to start chemotherapy and radiation. We're like, what? All this stuff. And then he said, I'm going to bring in a consultant.
That consultant turned out to be one of the most highly skilled doctors to handle this kind of thing, and he'd make all the difference in Amy's treatment.
In the meeting, we started to say, well, we know that we're going to have to do chemotherapy, radiation. He goes, whoa. He said, let's just stop here. He said, first, I'm going to get that out. Okay? The whole thing. I'm getting it out.
A 3-hour surgery took place weeks later, and that doctor, well, he did just as he promised and got that tumor out.
We call it an amamioma, though, because it's so rare that a woman of Amy's age would have this, because they generally don't see this type of tumor in adults. They only see them in children and toddlers.
Blessed is the word Mark uses to describe it. Blessed to have found that second doctor, and blessed that so far his wife does not need any chemo or radiation at all. Which may have you asking, where is Amy? Isn't she okay? At the time of this shoot, she was more than okay. She was enjoying life, soaking up the sun in North Carolina on a girls' trip.
I can't wait to start this remodel.
This will be fun.
But that's not where this story ends. No, not at all.
You guys can.
Mark and Amy brought on Sarah, one of our agents in the Grissack group.
After everything that Mark and Amy had been through this year, they decided it was time to do life a little differently.
It was at that moment that we decided, what are we doing in this big house? We said, maybe we think about simplifying, So we wanted to reduce stress, and simplify things. So smaller house, beautiful view, and try to just reduce the number of things that were competing for our attention that didn't deserve it. Literally the room and the view that
A new chance at life
right there.
for a simpler one. Amy knew this was the home the moment she saw this view. And for Mark, it's not just a home, even though he says this one is forever.
Yeah, so this is the first house I think that I would say it's Amy's house. I think the others have been from practical, it's a smart thing to do, common sense, do this sort of thing. But this is much more of home.
A woman looking forward to more love, more friendships, more time, by simply wanting less.